Are you sure about what you know? Truly sure? Psychologists speak of two systems governing your mind. The intuitive System 1, which is fast, automatic, and emotional, and the analytical System 2, which is slow, deliberate, and logical. We place our faith in System 2, but the truth is, System 1 is almost always in control. Today, science has identified over 180 distinct cognitive biases, predictable glitches in our thinking. Now, imagine that just one of those glitches once caused the entire scientific community to turn its back on the single most important discovery in human history. And we are still living in the world that mistake created.
Let's be precise, Arthur. Those glitches aren't bugs. They're features of our evolutionary hardware. Error management theory suggests it was always safer for our ancestors to make the less costly error, to see a snake in a stick 100 times rather than miss the real snake once. Arthur Eddington's alleged bias in his 1919 expedition, where he supposedly ignored photographic plates that didn't support Einstein, is just a high-stakes version of that same survival instinct at play. It's a mechanism built for survival, not for objective truth.
But we're no longer living on the savannah, Evelyn, and the cost of these features has become astronomical. In medicine alone, cognitive biases are responsible for up to 80,000 preventable deaths every year in the United States. And the expert paradox shows that the more experienced a professional is, the more vulnerable they can be to certain biases, like anchoring on an initial diagnosis. This isn't just a flaw, it's an invisible plague of self-deception. It's the ethical dilemma of our time. This knowledge can be used to help people, or, as we've seen, to exploit them.
And you believe you found the source of this plague? A patient zero in the history of science, where we lost something vital?
I believe we found its tomb, a case where brilliant minds stared directly at the truth, and their own brains forced them to look away. It takes me back to the blind watchmaker case. Early 80s. My predecessors in the Contour Division were investigating bizarre reports from a hydroelectric dam in Wyoming. Workers complaining of lost time, tools left in one spot only to reappear on a different level. One of our field agents, a man who never wore jewelry, swore his standard issue watch jumped forward by 3 seconds right before his eyes.
Sounds like localized magnetic interference, or a classic case of observer bias in a stressful environment.
That's what we thought, until we registered the signal. Faint, low frequency, but it wasn't just causing interference. Our instruments showed it was creating microscopic, yet measurable, distortions in the flow of time. While researching that case, I stumbled upon a nearly forgotten research paper from 1958, a small physics lab in Pennsylvania, studying background cosmic radiation. They recorded a signal with an almost identical signature.
And what was their conclusion?
I'll quote it directly from their summary. The observed anomaly, despite its curious periodicity, has been classified as an artifactual resonance, likely originating from a fault in the newly installed cathode ray oscilloscope. They called it a phantom echo and filed it away. They were standing on the threshold of a new reality and dismissed it as faulty wiring. They were so close. So why did they stop?
I found the paper, and you were right to be suspicious. The lab's funding. It came through a shell foundation that Contour used in the 50s and 60s to monitor civilian research. But it gets worse. I managed to get access to their digitized lab journals. It's a tragedy of the human mind laid bare on the page.
Show me.
It's a perfect cascade of cognitive failure. First, they're ecstatic. They found a signal unlike any other. Then, the lead scientist, a renowned expert in radio astronomy, proposes the equipment malfunction theory. That becomes their anchor. From that moment on, every piece of new data is interpreted through that lens. They're no longer investigating the signal, they're looking for proof that the machine is broken.
Confirmation bias. They were cherry-picking reality to fit their assumption.
It's more than that. The lead scientist was a victim of the curse of knowledge. His own expertise made it impossible for him to conceive of a phenomenon that his framework couldn't explain. Anything outside of his established reality had to be an error. Here's a log entry. Repeated tests yield the same result. There must be a systematic calibration error we are failing to identify. They couldn't find the error, Arthur, because there wasn't one. This all led to premature closure. They accepted the easy answer and abandoned the most important investigation of their lives because the alternative was simply too uncomfortable to confront. Based on their raw data, the signal was real. They actually recorded it.
So, it's true. It's the proof I've been looking for.
Wait. The signal they recorded, it bothered me. The signal-to-noise ratio is impossible. It's like finding a perfect symphony in the roar of a waterfall. Nature isn't that clean. At first, I thought that was part of the anomaly, but then I looked at the digital file's metadata.
And?
The raw data files, they weren't digitized and archived in 1958. The last modification date on the core files is October 12, 1983, 2 weeks after Contour officially closed the blind watchmaker case.
No, it can't be. I checked the provenance myself.
That's your confirmation bias kicking in, Arthur. You wanted it to be real. But there's more. The software signature on the file headers, it's not from some 1950s university program. It's a proprietary compiler, one used at the time almost exclusively by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, by DARPA. Arthur, this data is a forgery, an incredibly sophisticated, devious fake.
It wasn't a scientific failure. It was a trap. An information warfare operation.
Exactly. They didn't bury a discovery. They fabricated a perfect buried discovery. They knew that someday, someone like you would start digging, and they left this trail, a trail designed to lead nowhere, to discredit the very idea that such signals could exist. They used the science of cognitive bias as a weapon against the very people seeking the truth.
I was so focused on finding evidence to prove my beliefs that I fell victim to the most basic trap of all. They used my own conviction against me, my faith in the archives, in the data, in the story.
And they used my academic pride against me. I was so intent on diagnosing the cognitive biases of past scientists that I missed the signs of active, present-day deception. We both fell into the bias blind spot, the arrogant belief that we ourselves are immune to the very flaws we see in others. And in doing so, we nearly fell victim to the debiasing paradox. In our effort to correct one error, we were led into a far greater one. We're back where we started, but now we know the enemy isn't just hiding in the shadows. He's lighting false beacons to lead us onto the rocks.
Now you know this story, and this knowledge, like any strange signal, leaves a trace. Perhaps you felt that same cold chill.
Or perhaps you've seen what we missed, a simple explanation. Our archive is not just about facts, but about their collision with logic. Share your thoughts below. We read everything.
The next signal is already on its way. To receive it, stay on this frequency. Subscribe. Transmission terminated.